Lu Jin inside of the 5th year, his moonlight appeared. I accompanied him from the woeful to the scenery, but also cannot beat the white moonlight of a text message. Later, I tore off the double label into the male big embrace, but he cried and begged me to turn back. It's a pity. Isn't a vermilion mole precious only if you love it but can't have it? Happy birthday, baby! I finished my wish and opened my eyes. The handsome man in front of me was the boyfriend I had been talking about for 5 years. My smile grew brighter and brighter as I looked at him with tender and loving eyes. Lu Jinan dotingly touched my head and asked, "What is your birthday wish this year? Marry me, okay?" His action of cutting the cake froze, slowly raised his head, seemed to be looking at someone through me, and then did not seem to be. Just after a few seconds of pause, still like in the past, I have a wish nodded. The kinks and pain that flickered under his eyes nevertheless still pierced my heart. After finishing the cake, Lu Jinan wrapped his arms around me from behind, burying his face in my neck and inhaling deeply. With hot air blowing in his ear, he rubbed the tear mole at the end of my eye with his fingertips and spoke faintly. "Why don't I accompany you to have this mole lighted tomorrow?" My eyes instantly turned red, pursed my lips, and didn't say anything. "Hey, no, this mole is more like her, is it?" The pain in the bottom of my heart whistled like it was going to consume me, and I carefully covered his eyes and asked, "Can I not go? I don't like the mole, good girl." I couldn't restrain the tears that were almost falling, and twisted my head to tilt it back to kiss the familiar lips, the movement slightly rough, frantically hiding the bitterness that I almost choked out. Lu Jinan took the initiative by holding down my shoulders and bringing me to the bed. White skin plastered on the pure black sheets, my body sinking up and down, I gritted my teeth and refused to grunt, pinched in the waist of the palm hard almost to sink into the flesh, the slightest pain to make me more and more awake, the sweet smell of the cake drilled into my nose. But I feel bitter, my eyes are astringent, blinking, but not a single tear cannot be shed. The man beside me calm breathing sound came. I picked up his cell phone as usual, clicked on the hidden social account small icon, clicked into the note is small moon chat box, peeped into their chat records. She is Lu Jinan's white moonlight, is his youthful dream, is his love but cannot. I've been his girlfriend for 5 years, and I've only known that I'm a double for less than a month. I gasped softly and rubbed my eyes, looking at their chat from yesterday. "I'll be back tomorrow, Iman. I'll pick you up. I heard you got a new girlfriend?" "It's okay, she won't make a scene." "Yeah, why would I?" In the past 5 years, I've found out time and time again, and I've lied to myself again, and I've done my best to play the role of a good girlfriend. Lu Jinan made me take off my cheongsam and wear her favorite Spice Girl dress, made me wear pure lust makeup, and even the perfume had to be exactly the same as her favorite. For 5 years, I was changed by him. Even my former BFF was taken aback, pointing to the few thin pieces of fabric I was wearing and saying, "Listen, how did you switch to this style now? It's not like you?" Yes, how did I become like this? How could I, Zoo hearing, become like this? The Zoo listen who once held an oil paper umbrella and wore a cheongsam all drowned in dust because of this man in front of her. Every time I lie next to you when your heart is thinking of your little moon instead of me, right? I asked him softly, so softly that I could barely hear him. I looked sideways at the sleeping face of the person next to me, tracing the familiar contours with my eyes, and the hot tears in my eyes couldn't be held back any longer, and snapped down. A vibration suddenly came from my cell phone, and I subconsciously pressed the answer button. "Senior, really sorry to bother you so late. My flight was delayed, now I can't get a car at the airport. Can Senior come pick me up?" A woman with a sweet voice said on the other end of the phone. I closed my eyes as in Lu Jinan's online trumpet to see that sweet and lovely photo, Lee Kinking wearing a white shirt and small skirt, standing next to her. Lu Jinan stared at her fixedly. The love in his eyes is visible to the naked eye strong. The two people look extremely pair. Countless of their friends left messages of blessing below, and even after Li Qingqing left Lu Jinan, whose family was bankrupt, to go abroad for further study, this article was still on the top of the internet. I opened my mouth, sneered at the startled man in front of me, and squeezed out the words of reply from between my teeth. "I'm sorry, he's sleeping. There's something you guys can say in person tomorrow." Lu Jinan snatched the cell phone and hung up the phone. The eyes of the hidden heart fell on me, annoyed, and spoke. "Who let you just pick up my phone? You fell asleep. I just answered it for you. Why are you so nervous?" I replied coldly, gathering the slipped pajamas tightly again. Looking at the man who had shared the same bed for 5 years in front of me, my heart only felt sick to the core. Or is this woman who called you in the middle of the night to pick her up, the white moonlight Li Qingqing that you've been pining for over 10 years? Lu Jinan's black pupils dilated for a split second. The trepidation in the bottom of his eyes pierced my heart. He opened his mouth long enough to meet my emotionless eyes and froze in place. "I have nothing with her." After a long moment of silence, he spat this out. Splat! I slapped him hard, turned over their chat records and online photos of the two of them for over 10 years and spread them out in front of him, hissed and yelled at him. "You think I'm stupid, don't you? Look at my face and her at least 5 points similar face. You think I zoo listen to what? Double?" Lu Jinan was blindsided by my slap, his eyes full of disbelief. After all, I have been obedient to him for the past few years, almost like a soft bun without a temper, making him forget that I used to be the no one in the art department, a talented painter known as a once-in-a-century talent at S University. I, Zhu Listen, have my own pride and bottom line. His white cheeks quickly surfaced slap marks. He stared at me with eyes full of hurt. If usual, I would have been unable to resist going over and hugging him to apologize in 100 pleasing ways, but now I just looked at him coldly, as if I was looking at a stranger. Lu Jinan was stung by my eyes in general, anxiously holding my hand, explaining, "I have never betrayed you. Listen, you believe me. I have promised to marry you tonight. Don't worry, listen, I will definitely marry you. Happy birthday, baby." I finished wishing and opened my eyes. The handsome man in front of me is my boyfriend who I have been talking about for 5 years. My smile grew brighter and brighter, and my eyes were full of tenderness and love when I looked at him. Lu Jinan dotingly touched my head and asked, "What is your birthday wish this year? Marry me, okay?" His action of cutting the cake froze, slowly raised his head, seemed to be looking at someone through me, and then did not seem to be. Just after a few seconds of pause, still like in the past, "I have a request," nodded. The kinks and pain that flickered under his eyes nevertheless still pierced my heart. After finishing the cake, Lu Jinan wrapped his arms around me from behind, burying his face in my neck and inhaling deeply. With hot air blowing in his ear, he rubbed the tear mole at the end of my eye with his fingertips and spoke faintly. "Why don't I accompany you to have this mole lighted tomorrow?" My eyes instantly turned red, pursed my lips, and didn't say anything. "Hey, no, this mole is more like her, is it?" The pain in the bottom of my heart whistled like it was going to consume me, and I carefully covered his eyes and asked, "Can I not go?" "I don't like the mole, good girl." I couldn't restrain the tears that were almost falling, and twisted my head to tilt it back to kiss the familiar lips, the movement slightly rough, frantically hiding the bitterness that I almost choked out. Lu Jinan took the initiative by holding down my shoulders and bringing me to the bed. White skin plastered on the pure black sheets, my body sinking up and down. I gritted my teeth and refused to grunt, pinched in the waist of the palm hard almost to sink into the flesh, the slightest pain to make me more and more awake, the sweet smell of the cake drilled into my nose. But I feel bitter, my eyes are astringent, blinking, but not a single tear cannot be shed. The man beside me calm breathing sound came. I took his cell phone as usual, clicked on the hidden WeChat small icon, clicked into the note is small moon chat box, peeped at their chat records. She is Lu Jinan's white moonlight, is his youthful dream, is his love but cannot. I've been his girlfriend for 5 years, and I've only known that I'm a double for less than a month. I gasped softly and rubbed my eyes, looking at their chat from yesterday. I'll be back tomorrow, Iman. I'll pick you up. I heard you got a new girlfriend? It's okay, she won't make a scene. Yeah, why would I? In the past 5 years, I've found out time and time again, and I've lied to myself again, and I've done my best to play the role of a good girlfriend. Loo Jinan made me take off my cheongsam and wear her favorite Spice Girl dress, made me wear Pure Lust makeup, and even the perfume had to be exactly the same as her favorite. For 5 years, I was changed by him. Even my former BFF was taken aback, pointing to the few thin pieces of fabric I was wearing and saying, "Listen, how did you switch to this style now? It's not like you?" Yes, how did I become like this? How could I, Zoo hearing, become like this? The Zoo listen who once held an oil paper umbrella and wore a cheongsam all drowned in dust because of this man in front of her. Every time I lie next to you when your heart is thinking of your little moon instead of me, right? I asked him softly, so softly that I could barely hear him. I looked sideways at the sleeping face of the person next to me, tracing the familiar contours with my eyes, and the hot tears in my eyes couldn't be held back any longer, and snapped down. A vibration suddenly came from my cell phone, and I subconsciously pressed the answer button. Senior, really sorry to bother you so late. My flight was delayed. Now I can't get a car at the airport. Can Senior come pick me up? A woman with a sweet voice said on the other end of the phone. I closed my eyes is in Loo Jinan's microblogging trumpet to see that sweet and lovely photo, Lee Kinking wearing a white shirt and small skirt, standing next to her. Loo Jinan stared at her fixedly. The love in his eyes is visible to the naked eye strong. The two people look extremely pair. Countless of their friends left messages of blessing below, and even after Lee Kinking left Loo Jinan, whose family was bankrupt, to go abroad for further study, this microblogging was still in the top position. I opened my mouth, coldly smiled as I looked at the awakened man in front of me, and squeezed out the words of reply from between my teeth. I'm sorry, he's sleeping. There's something you guys can say in person tomorrow. Loo Jinan snatched the cell phone and hung up the phone. The eyes of the hidden heart fell on me, annoyed, and spoke. Who let you just pick up my phone? You fell asleep. I just answered it for you. Why are you so nervous? I replied coldly, gathering the slipped pajamas tightly again, looking at the man who had shared the same bed for 5 years in front of me. My heart only felt sick to the core. Or is this woman who called you in the middle of the night to pick her up, the white moonlightly kinking that you've been pining for over 10 years? Loo Jinan's black pupils dilated for a split second. The trepidation in the bottom of his eyes pierced my heart. He opened his mouth long enough to meet my emotionless eyes and froze in place. I have nothing with her. After a long moment of silence, he spat this out. Splat! I fiercely threw him a slap. Their chat records and microblogging 2 people for more than 10 years of photos are turned out and spread out in front of him, hissed and yelled at him. You think I'm stupid, don't you? Look at my face and her at least 5 points similar face. You think I zoo listen to what? Double. Loo Jinan was blindsided by my slap, his eyes full of disbelief. After all, I have been obedient to him for the past few years, almost like a soft bun without a temper, making him forget that I used to be the no one in the art department, a talented painter known as a once-in-a-century talent at S University. I, Zhu Listen, have my own pride and bottom line. His white cheeks quickly surfaced slap marks. He stared at me with eyes full of hurt. If usual, I would have been unable to resist going over and hugging him to apologize in 100 pleasing ways, but now I just looked at him coldly, as if I was looking at a stranger. Loo Jinan was stung by my eyes in general, anxiously held my hand, explained. I have never betrayed you. Listen, you believe me. I have promised to marry you tonight. You can rest assured. Listen, I will marry you. He, you will marry me? Loo Jinan, are you giving me charity? Looking at his eagerness to explain, holding his face red, I pointed to the tear mole at the corner of my eye again and said, Lu Jinan, don't forget who picked you up in the first place. I Zhu listen, never like anyone, and I'll never be a stand-in. I looked at the man who had slept beside me for 5 years in front of me and felt a tickle in my throat and an uncontrollable nausea that seemed like it was going to make me vomit the next second. I pointed at the door and said in a disgusted tone, Get out of here, I never want to see you again in my life. Since the last time I kicked Lu Jinan out of my house, I pulled the plug on all of his contact information, fled to my hometown, and even changed my phone number. Several people in the news that we broke up after the openly and secretly over to inquire. After all, now Lu Jinan in the past is not a debt collector beaten all over the poor people. He used my graduation paintings knocked on the door of the market. The past few years mixed like a fish out of water. Has long become the mall of the new nobility. Everyone said that I reported to a gold thighs, seems to be selective to forget that I gave up for him to go abroad for further study, and the opportunity to go abroad to study for the first time, and the first time to go abroad for further study. Stay in that small broken company to accompany him to fight so many years of hard work and pay. Lu Jinan in my disappearance a week after the drive to town, in my house outside the door to guard me. Parents look at my eyes more and more worried. I look at the familiar car parked downstairs every day. The surge of emotions day by day more and more intense. Finally, after the 5th time he secretly followed me and I caught him, I looked at him coldly and sarcastically. What, done delivering your little moon, or is there something wrong with the company and you want me to go back and clean up the mess? He seemed to have been poked to the sore spot, gritting his teeth and saying word for word. Have you made enough of a scene to listen? We broke up. Can't you understand human language? Or did the debt collectors back then not only broke your legs, but even your ears? Blame me, blame me. You tell me how I picked up such a disabled thing. I relentlessly continued to expose his pitiful past wounds, saying the most vicious things. He panicked with the naked eye. He covered my mouth to keep me from continuing, pain in his eyes, and said in a trembling voice, Listen, let's not break up, okay? I can't stay away from you. I'm full of you. Lu Jinan hugged me into his arms, deadly, not leaving a single gap. I felt his obviously slimmed down body, looked at the familiar face showing a pained expression, and the stabbing pain in my heart was like razor blades lashing my heart. But I still gritted my teeth and said, You'd rather continue to interact intimately with your little moon on Weibo than help me with my overtime work, and now you're saying you can't leave me? I think you can't let go of me being a cow for you. Listen, I'm wrong. I'm really wrong. I admit I started out. At first, I started to pay attention to you because of her, but these days I figured it out. I really want to marry you. I really want to marry you. Lu Jinan's eyes were so red that he was almost in tears. It seems like I haven't seen such a Lu Jinan for a long time. He was always in a high and mighty position in this relationship. Even when I helped him in his worst time, he still closed his heart to me. It seems that there is always a glass wall between me and him. He just sat there quietly, watching me hot-faced to cold ass, for him to run around and busy to pay off the huge debt, for him to give up the pressure of the opportunity to go abroad to pull the investment. He has never even shown a little bit of me like Li Qingqing as obsessed with the expression, only in a time when I was the investor to the hospital to fill the alcohol alms like a sentence. We are in the let's be together. This kind of sudden realization makes me dizzy, also makes my heart like a knife. Zhu, listen, you how cheap ah, rushed to the hot face pasted cold ass pasted a whole 5 years. My hands reported arms, cold face to see him, but the hot tears on the face is a brain to stay. I'm not crying for him, I'm crying for my blindness for so many years and also delayed a good future. Lu Jinan saw my tears, completely panicked. He is so proud of a person, now in front of me inch by inch to put their own spine down, pleasing to say a bunch of soft words, say not moved is false. Lu Jinan, I, Zhu hearing, am not as cheap as you are. I never eat back grass. I turned my back, raised my head to let the tears flow backwards, and said softly, Sis, did you really break up with that Lou guy? My cousin cocked his head and asked me, his face full of curiosity and indignation. I nodded seriously, twisting my head to answer him with a soft smile while drawing, "Of course it's true." "That's great, hehehe. I've long looked at that Lou's surname in a bad light. He doesn't look like a good thing. He smiles and looks like a crook every day." He took a bite of an ice watermelon and raised his hand to hand me a piece as well. "Looks like our Tatsuya was prescient." The cold texture cut through my fingertips and I squinted comfortably. After all, I had prepared for the breakup a month in advance, and after being salty at home for so long, I had been able to keep a surface calm when it came up again. My cousin nodded fervently, his slimy little chubby hands placed on mine, and said, "Sister, my mom found me a college student tutor, but handsome I tell you, don't be sad, I'll introduce him to you." Said he straightened his round belly and looked at me with pride, which made me laugh involuntarily. My brother is an uneducated junior high school student. Usually Lawless basically do not listen to anyone. Only I can say a few words about him. My great aunt, in order to make him study hard in his last year, worried about the hair, has turned white several roots. I slowly and methodically pull away from the hand, body like no bones, like lying back to the rocking chair. The hand of the jade bracelet touched the tea jars, tinkling. Touching the elegant white cheongsam on my body, lined with excellent silk material, collar, cuffs and hem locked with exquisite gold silk edging, embroidery, hand-embroidered hot gold daisies, stitching dense, familiar touch, let me let out a sigh of comfort. I glanced at Chen Chen and snickered. "Sister isn't interested in men. You're just a little kid studying well. You don't have to worry about it for me." After saying that, ignoring his angry eyes, I stretched out my fingers and pinched his fleshy cheeks. Seeing that I didn't believe him, he hurriedly said, "Sis, trust me, we both play soccer together every day. We're already good buddies." Splat! The sound of something falling came from outside the door, and the boy in the white baseball jersey in front of me looked dumbfounded until the woman across from him swept over with half-smiled eyes and walked over as if she had just come back to her senses. Covering up a light cough, he stammered and opened his mouth to Zhu Chen, who was crouched to the side. "Auntie told me to shout for you to go eat and to start class after eating." The voice was clear to the ears and juvenile. I put the bushel over my face and looked at this college student tutor through the cracks. He was wearing simple white short sleeves and black pants, with a clean and cool temperament around him. Under his black hair, he has clean eyebrows, long and narrow eyes, high nose, sharp edges, and clear jawline, showing his youthfulness. Well, indeed a handsome man, I thought silently in my heart. I waved my hand and told Zhu Chen to go eat. I didn't expect the young handsome man across the street to open his mouth and ask me to come along too. I thought about it left and right anyway. I have nothing to do. It's not a bad idea to go to my great aunt's house to try her handiwork. So I got up and followed them. On the way, he kept looking for a topic of conversation, his eyes unabashedly falling on me, which I noticed and moved away from. "Is Sis from this side of the country?" "Yes," I answered succinctly, then felt rude and added, "This is far from the city. What brings you here to tutor?" "I came here to find inspiration for painting and tutoring on the side." He pursed his lips from time to time as he spoke. His ears were red from the moment he saw me, and now it's spreading to his neck, and from my angle, it's his beautiful side face, with slightly high brow bones, long and dense eyelashes, and because of his pursed lips, his jawline is taut and looks exceptionally sunny. I can't help but want to make him laugh a little, opened my mouth and said, "If you can't control him, just hit him with your hands. He has a thick skin. My great Aunt Kane has broken several." Sister, how are you like this? I am your brother, Immediately, Zhu Chen's disgruntled protests rang in his ears. I immediately jerked a handful of Zhu Chen's fluffy curly head and opened my mouth to answer. "Tables." The teenager snorted out a laugh, lifting a pair of peach blossom eyes. Without hesitation, raised his head to meet my eyes. his heavy black eyes fixedly looking at me, but let me have a moment of confusion, took the lead to move away from the eyes. Zhu Chen huffed and puffed and grunted all over, shouting, "I'm going to run back and eat all your favorite dishes. I don't like you anymore." Turning his head, he viciously let loose on the teenager next to him again. "You actually helped my sister laugh at me. A guy who forgets his friends when he sees color." After saying this, as if he was afraid of being caught, he turned his head and ran away. I looked at his chubby back, the mood suddenly changed for the better, smiled and curved his eyes, carrying a small satchel, stepping on the white small high heels, click, click, click forward. The mossy green stone floor became a little slippery after the rain, and I was a bit unable to stand on my feet. A bony hand came over to me, and a slightly shy voice rang out. "Sister, if you don't mind, I can hold you up." I smiled gently and took his lean arm, asking politely, "What's your name, little brother?" He raised his eyes and met my gaze for the second time, a little more ease in his smile, his voice clear and nice. "Zhang Qi, the one with the rising reputation." I looked at the teenager in front of me. In his blazing eyes seemed to see myself 5 years ago, shy and confident, dazzling, look straight into my heart. "Zhu, listen, the one who washes his ears and listens." After learning that he was also a student at S University, I took a look at his paintings and gave a little advice. This kid ran to follow me to pick up the wind as soon as he was free, asking questions, and Zhang Qi stayed in a piece of the day unexpectedly together. He can always understand my mind, almost like a roundworm in my stomach. Even my paints can be adjusted to the color I want. The days in my hometown slipped through my fingers in no time at all, and I could not feel the passage of time, and soon I was very comfortable. I gradually learned to cook a few simple dishes, and from time to time sat in front of the wooden window leisurely drinking my mom's sour plum soup, occasionally supervised Zhu Chen's homework, and helped Zhang Qi to change the drawing. His paintings are all kinds of paintings. This period of time, the most paintings is the white-walled and black-tiled town, which he said is the life he most aspires to. He asked me what I want most in life. I looked at the white mist on the lake in the early morning. My mind came up with the girlfriend's circle of friends in the sun to study abroad daily, when we both received the acceptance letter of the foreign art school. I gave up for Lu Jinan, selectively ignored the tutor and her eyes full of disappointment. Now I think of it as regrettable. I opened my mouth long, sour emotions surged to my heart, did not answer him. I don't know when it started. Every evening, Zhang Qi and I would go out for a walk as we had agreed to do, go to the creek, walk on the bridge, stroll around the night market. Gradually, we became more and more familiar with each other. When it rained, we went out with umbrellas, smelling the smell of rain-dampened soil around us, as if we were outside the world. Those days of heavy and noisy, and I seemed to be isolated. With the day by day, my heart really get calm. Thankfully, my hands of the shares by the rival company Jiang's group at a very high price. Time is gradually to the end of the summer vacation. I began to start preparing to go back to the S City. Back to the day of S City, the rain is still very big. I looked for Zhang Qi to help run Li. Just as I waved goodbye to him, humming and puffing to climb upstairs, a lift of the eyes, I saw the door squatting a person. A bearded face, eyes full of haggard Lu Jinan quietly looked at me, still wearing a suit shirt soaked by the rain. He accused me with an angry face. "Something happened with the company's equity transfer. Why did you sell your equity to my opposite family?" I slammed the luggage in my hand on the floor with a bang and laughed out coldly. "You've been dilly-dallying for months without signing the transfer. Do I eat air to live?" Zhu, hearing, "This company was built up by you. Can you bear to destroy it with your own hands?" Lu Jinan looked at me with an unbelievable face. "Sister Zhu, they all said they want to have a farewell dinner with you. Do you really want to give up?" The familiar faces of my company mates surfaced in my mind. My body's strength seemed to be empty all of a sudden, with a feeling of not being able to lift my strength. Pulling out the key, unlocking the door, carrying the bag, and with a sideways glance, I spoke with a somewhat unnatural voice. "Come in." Lu Jinan's fingers curled up for a moment, straightened up, and followed me into the house. The man in front of me watched in silence as I busied myself carrying my luggage, and then stared at the familiar room for a long time, as if he was caught up in a long dusty memory, the corner of his mouth hooked up in a gentle arc. The look he gave me was getting more and more dangerous, and I cursed in my heart, damn it. Shouldn't have let him in on a moment's weakness. Take your stuff back, I shouted at him irritably. It's in the room, get it yourself. Lu Jinin's eyes flashed with a hint of sadness and determination as he swept past me into the room to pack his things. A click of the door opened and Zhang Qi's vibrant voice rang out. Sister, you really have a lot of things, but fortunately I'm young and fit, hehehe, all for you to carry up. I took it with a smile, my heart slightly relieved. At that exact moment, Lu Jinin walked out of the door, staring at the two of us with an uncertain expression, his eyes filled with the pain of betrayal and disbelief. You're looking for a gigolo behind my back? The air around us froze for a split second, and I couldn't even believe his thick skin. Mouth faster than brain, a shaky voice escaped my lips. Dog, you got a rectum through your brain? You're only allowed to have schoolmates, but not me? Zhang Qi stood next to me, looking at my face that was red with anger showed some surprise. After a little thinking, he directly hugged my shoulder and looked at Lu Jinin with a bad face. The two of them looked at each other with a dangerous atmosphere gradually forming. Lu Jinin paused for a moment, seemingly unable to imagine that I would be so hardened after 5 years of not daring to say a word to him, more like catching a cheating wife in the act of annoyance. Zhu hearing. His voice was full of suppressed fire as he berated me. Lu Jinan! You make it clear that we have broken up, I Zhu listen and you have nothing to do. The past 5 years will be treated as if I fed the dog, do you understand? Lu Jinin stared at me, veins rippling on his forehead. He finally sensed that I was for real this time, and that I would no longer lower myself to please him in every way, much less care about his feelings. I held Zhang Qi's hand back, raised my chin and said condescendingly, apologize to him. Lu Jinin looked like he had received a great humiliation and bluntly slammed the door. The heavy aluminum alloy door was closed heavily, my body's strength was like being drained away, my hands and feet were weak and fell to the ground. Zhang Qi's hands rushed to help me, anxiously shouting my name, the heartache in his eyes almost overflowing. Sister, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. I looked at his anxious and panicked appearance. Inexplicably, the tears of collapse instantly broke the dike. Zhang Qi's hands were busy helping me wipe my tears, just like treating a fragile treasure. I heart a touch, reached out to hold his hand. He dared not look at me with his head down, lowered eyelashes like butterfly wings constantly vibrating, one by one, scratching the tip of my heart trembling. He red-faced back to hold my hand, tone with a hint of woe. Zhu, listen, if you don't feel offended, I'd like to stay here and take care of you these days. Oh, exempt, Nianxia doesn't call her sister. Her mind is a bit wild. After that day, it seemed like I was completely stripped from my last relationship, and that painful cry kicked those 5 years out of my life in general. Zhang Qi from that day after that blatantly stick to me, 3 days to my home to work, my 3 meals a day are almost contracted by him, but also do housework and laundry, simply become my personal nanny. Usually holding a paintbrush hand is now holding a kitchen knife, white fingers on the nails neatly trimmed, in the fish body cut flower knife, not at all out of place, and even have a little focus on doing things charm. He raised his hand to take the seasoning from the side of me. When he turned sideways, I inadvertently glimpsed the 6-pack abs under his undershirt that were sized like Pan-Pan's buns, and the fragrance of laundry detergent lingered on the tip of my nose, and I couldn't restrain myself from swallowing a little bit of saliva. Zhang Qi did not notice this. He calmly and skillfully frying vegetables, constantly put his hand around the obstruction of me to take the seasoning, practiced just right biceps in front of my eyes swaying. I bad thoughts gradually rise, quietly close to him, blowing in his ear and said, Wow, so fragrant ah, who do you wife really happy after la? The man stopped the hand of frying, turned around and pulled into the distance, put me around the table, eyes with a sly smile, the corner of his mouth curved up. In that case, sister, want to consider abducting me home every day to cook for you? I made a big red face, surprised for a split second, and retaliated unwillingly. Only cooking? Sister can also do something else if she wants to. Zhang Qi's handsome face quickly approached, practically sticking up. I raised my hand against him in panic, and through the thin material of the cotton undershirt, his hot body heat was pressed against my palm. Surprised to find that the boy had learned his lesson, I watched dumbfounded as he drew closer, falling into a pair of smiling peach blossom eyes that nearly engulfed me with their raging possessiveness. His straight nose tentatively touched my face, causing another wave of even more raging redness, which I pushed away. I unconsciously coughed a few times to hide my blush and picked up my chopsticks to taste the ribs in the pot, nodding to myself and changing the subject. These ribs are quite tasty. Zhang Qi skillfully poured the dish into the plate, tilted his head, and like a big golden hair took half of the leftover ribs on my chopsticks, chewed rather meaningfully, and slowly opened his mouth with his eyes fixed on me. Yummy! I don't know if I'm referring to the person or the ribs. The weather was just right. I went back to school to visit my mentor, and Zhang Qi met up to go to the cat cafe near S University to jerk the cat. I picked up the cat and buried my face in it, sucking like a cat addict. Zhang Qi did not move to look down at the woman in front of her. She wore low-heeled white shoes, short of him a lot, floral halter dress outside the set of a milky white knitted cardigan, plain and clean, long and slender neck stretched into the cat's stomach. A face of insatiable jerking the cat, the whole person seems to be slender and gentle. His lips pursed, unconsciously moved away from the line of sight. The knot in his throat rolled minutely. The possessiveness in the bottom of his eyes was masked by the dark and heavy eyes to cover the emotions. Senior, look, this English short is so fat. A delicate voice rang out, breaking the calm. As soon as I raised my eyes, I saw Lu Jinin's shadowy face. T.S. I didn't read the yellow calendar when I went out today. I bumped into a disgusting man. What bad luck. Our eyes collided. Lu Jinin clenched his hand. With my understanding of him, this is a sign that he is extremely upset. I instantly feel good. He turned his head to the woman next to him and gently coaxed. There are too many idle people outside. Let's go inside the box. The girl in front of me and I was dressed like a rut instantly locked her eyes on me. She raised her eyes disdainfully, scanned me up and down, and opened her mouth to say in a bad tone, It's not the senior's ex-girlfriend, is it? The naive romance she showed towards Lu Jinin was gone, and she said in a sarcastic tone, Everyone says that you can't even pick up a leak, senior. Do you think they're right? I instantly realized that this was Lu Jinin's little moon. Li Qingqing. Zhang Qi stood up mischievously, walked to my side, slightly raised his chin, similarly scanned Li Qingqing up and down, and said in an unkind tone, Li Qingqing, after so many years of absence, your mouth is still as dirty as before. Li Qingqing looked at him like a cat that had its tail stepped on, incredulously looking at him and then at me. Unable to care about her image, she exclaimed in shock. Zhang Shao, why are you here? Lu Jinin beside him stared wide-eyed, twisting his head around to point a finger at me and said, You did it on purpose. You intentionally sold your shares to the Zhang Group. You're working hand in glove with him. The blood on my face faded, looking at him as if I was looking at a stranger. Zhang Qi beside me had a steep change in his aura. No longer the coy look he had before, he slapped Lu Jinin's fingers away and swept me into his arms. Nearly 1.9 meters taller than Lu Jinin by half a head, he had a teasing smile on his face. A pair of peach blossom eyes slightly narrowed, and said in an icy tone, Lu Jinin, right? Remember, Zhang will never agree to work with someone with a bad character like you. The acquisition is off the table. He turned his head to look at Li Qingqing, who was trembling in fear. revealing a disgusted look as if he had seen something dirty, and sarcastically said without mercy, "As for you, I heard that you got knocked up in a foreign country, and now you're back in the country meddling in someone else's relationship, looking for someone to be the receiver. You are as thick-skinned as the one beside you." After saying that, he no longer cared about the face of the two people like a palette of colors, embracing me out of the door of the cat cafe. Out of the door, he returned to the previous shy and gentle appearance, soothingly pinched my hand, lowered his head with some apprehension on his face, and tentatively opened his mouth to say, "Will my sister blame me for keeping it from you?" I looked at his appearance, gently raised his eyebrows. The bottom of my heart had guessed, I said as the city-leading enterprise Jiang's was suddenly interested in Lu Jin in that small ragged company, feelings is to let me go through a back door. Looking at Zhang Qi's face revealed a panicked look. I recalled that he had just defended my behavior. My heart was warm. Jokingly, I said, "Let's see how you behave, young Master Zhang." After returning to school that day, my mentor took me by the hand and counted down the fact that I had given up a great opportunity to further my education that year, which again aroused my thoughts of going abroad for further study. "Listen, you've always been my proudest student. Listen to me, don't ever waste your good talent again." The professor, who was over half 100 years old with half-white hair, couldn't stop feeling sorry in his eyes as he looked at me. My eyes warmed up and I suddenly thought of the dream of studying abroad that had been put on hold for a long time. Some years ago, in order to manage the company for Lu Jinan, I was so busy that I didn't touch the ground. Now I have money and leisure. Why not go to realize my dream? My drawing techniques have long been rusty, but my skills are still there. I tried to send a few pairs of ink drawings that I did in the town during the summer vacation to the admissions office, and I didn't expect to receive a reply soon, and they said that they could arrange for me to enroll in the school as soon as possible. I was so busy over the matter of studying abroad that it took me nearly half a month to get everything ready, and when I told Zhang Qi the good news, he was silent for a moment, only lifting his wet peach blossom eyes and saying, "Sister, can you accompany me to a place?" In the fall season, the weather was slightly cool, and I sat in the passenger seat of Zhang Qi's new car. A slender hand carrying a cup of hot milk tea was handed to my eyes, and a clear and still crisp voice rang out, "Sugar-free." I joyfully took it, took a hard sip, and sighed sardonically in satisfaction. I turned my head to look carefully at his slightly red earlobes. My heart secretly moved. After 5 years of talking to my ex, no matter how many times I said Lu Jining couldn't remember that I don't like sweets, but Zhang Qi would bring me a sugar-free version. You see, it's not that a man can't remember, it depends on whether or not he's willing to remember. Zhang Qi smiled helplessly and dotingly. Half a month did not see the man's temperament more and more calm. Jawline angles because of the past few days of running became more obvious, the eyes of the smile more or the same as before. He quite skillfully helped me fasten my seatbelt, took out the various snacks prepared in the trunk and placed them in the slot next to the seat, and also thoughtfully placed the trash can at my feet. My eyes narrowed in beauty, and I realized in a trance that I'd been having a really barfy time, feeling like I'd lived the previous years inside a dog's stomach, and I spoke in a whisper. "I've gained 10 pounds in the past few months." Zhang Qi did not look askance as he reversed the car with one hand, absently skimmed my small stomach, and said the words handsome me a face. "Sister is not fat at all, she was too thin before, now it's just right." "Worthy of you, Zhang Qi, really good at talking." I nodded my head beautifully in agreement and focused on eating. Soon we arrived at today's destination. He found a temple that was said to be very spiritual and said he wanted to bring me here to worship Buddha for peace. I was just about to open the trunk. He rubbed his hand down and mysteriously winked at me with starry eyes. "You can't open it yet, sis. I've got a birthday surprise for you. We'll see it tonight." I nodded with anticipation and went into the temple with him to pray. We took incense, lit it, knelt before the Buddha, and he even tried to buy me a string of beads. The monk in the earthy yellow monk's uniform gave me a slight nod, his smiling face looking kind, and spoke. This almsman already has a blessing on his hand, wearing more won't help. I looked down at the jade bracelet that my grandfather had given me before he passed away, and my nose soured. His voice full of regret seemed to ring in my ears. Newer, Grandpa can't see you getting married. You have to be good. Grandpa blesses you in heaven. Don't cry, don't cry. It won't look good if you cry. Grandpa's greatest wish is to see us become great painters. Back then, in order to match, Lu Jinan sent me a small skirt. I personally sealed it into the cabinet. A lock is 5 years, and now I were back to my favorite cheongsam. Wearing on the hand is how to see how appropriate. The past is like smoke, but also seems to be in front of us. Zhang Qi see my mood is not right, pulling me out of the temple. I stood outside the temple hung red silk next to the tree, raised his eyes and looked at the evening wind blowing and up and down fluttering prayer belt, with tears in his eyes to Zhang Qi said, "Do you think God and Buddha can really hear the prayers of the world?" He paused and answered me softly, "If God and Buddha cannot fulfill it, I will do it for you." Meeting his eyes full of affection, I couldn't stop the corners of my eyes from moisturizing and gently held his hand. Grandpa. Looking at the fluttering red ribbons, with the breeze of incense breath on my face, I closed my eyes and prayed with utmost devotion. I opened my eyes, heard a rustling sound next to me, and unconsciously twisted my head. A warm, soft touch suddenly came to my mouth. I didn't dare to move for a moment, and froze there, my mind blank for a moment. Zhang Qi tentatively aggravated rubbing my lips. After noticing my careful response, a clasp on the back of my neck ruthlessly break open my teeth, like to dismantle me into the abdomen, like wantonly plunder the air between my mouth. The end of a kiss, I panted and looked at the man in front of me who hadn't had enough. My brain was stuck in a shell for a moment, and I looked at him dumbfounded, with a face that looked like a ripe peach. He raised his eyebrows and covered my eyes, said slightly helplessly, "Sister, don't look at me with such eyes. I'm afraid I'll be, right away." He didn't say the latter words, and I was overwhelmed by being led by the hand to the side of the car, and Zhang Qi opened the trunk. The light from the yellowish nightlight shone on the dozens of paintings of various types that were hung up, and there was only one main character on them, me. There was the look of me bowing my head and biting the tip of my pen, the look of me eating with my cheeks puffed out, the look of me wearing a light green cheongsam and lying on a rocking chair. The piles and pieces between Zhang Qi and I were all drawn by him in one stroke. And my eyes gradually became moist. Zhang Qi didn't know where to hold out a handful of white roses. His slightly thin red handsome face lifted up, a pair of glittering eyes staring at me earnestly, his tone gentle to the extreme. "Listen, really thank you for appearing in my world." Saying this, he squatted down and tilted his head to look at me, continuing, "Zhu Hearing, are you willing to be my girlfriend?" I froze openly at him and whispered in a slightly nasal voice, "But I'm going to study abroad soon." "It's okay, I'll just chaperone." "Then, please take care of me from now on too, boyfriend." He joyfully picked me up and spun me around, bent down, closed his eyes and carefully kissed my forehead. His movements were indescribably precious. 3 years later, at an auction, the host held the microphone and said excitedly, "This next painting is the work of Mr. Smith's close disciple, and our organizer is honored to invite Miss Zhu to come to the scene to introduce this painting to us." In the roaring applause of the audience, Lu Jinan watched the familiar figure in front of him slowly walk into the venue, so shocked that he stood up from his seat, causing bystanders to glance at him. The light green cheongsam outlines the delicate curves, the high collar shows the long and slender neck, the hemline reveals a section of bare white calves, hidden, the whole person is like a pure and elegant lily. My eyes smiled as I scanned the room, confidently began to talk about this 3 years of hard work painted landscape, in touch with Lu Jinan's shocked eyes rippled over him. After the start of the auction, Lu Jinan did not even think about the highest price to auction Zhu Hearing words, and even carefully asked the staff can see Zhu Hearing aside. In the refusal of the answer to the lost soul back to the position, completely did not pay attention to the woman beside the face of the pain and hatred cannot be suppressed. Looking at the charming woman on the stage, Lee King nails almost sunk into the flesh. Looking at the good hard to return to their side Lu Jinan and revealed the appearance of lost in thought. Thinking of the career has been poor in these few years, and the former defeated actually mixed like a fish in the water. Her eyes rolled under the bottom of the intense hatred and unwillingness. Zhu, listen, you bitch, how to still be so haunted? A stage, in the dressing room took the bag, was about to turn around and leave. Ears rang an impatient female voice. Zhu, listen to you, really shameless it. So entangled interesting? Who am I pestering? When I saw the woman's face, which was almost 7 or 8% similar to mine, I instantly wondered who she was. Lu Jinan didn't want you a long time ago, and you still eyeballed deliberately appearing at the auction. Are you just trying to get his attention? I looked at her maniacal appearance with cold eyes. My remaining light glimpsed an extra tear mole at the end of her eye that looked exactly like mine, and narrowed my eyes slightly. Lee King was like a cat that had its tail stepped on, instantly raising her hand to cover the mole, screaming miserably at me. You bitch! It's all because of you. Lu Jinan made me get plastic surgery for you. She raised her palm and wanted to hit it over, but a strong hand straightly curbed her arm, unable to move halfway. Zhang Qi's gloomy face was almost dripping ink as he looked at Lee King, his tone appalling. Scram! Saying that, he mercilessly flung Lee King to Lu Jinan, who hurriedly arrived, not expecting to be pushed away by him, falling straight to the ground and letting out a cry of pain. Lu Jinan didn't even look at her. His eyes lingered on the hands Zhang Qi and I were holding, his tone angry to the extreme. You guys are really together? I laughed out coldly. None of your business. Lu Jinan touched my cold to the core face as if he had been stabbed by a needle. His face changed back to a look of apprehension and hurt as he scrambled to open his mouth to explain. It wasn't me who made her come over to embarrass you. Listen to me. Mr. Lu, I'm not interested in listening to your love-hate relationship. Lu Jinan words have not finished was interrupted by me. Next to Lee King jumped over to hold his thighs, loudly crying and howling, completely ignoring the side surrounded by more and more people. Lu Jinan face completely unable to hang on, finally no longer entangled, with full of deep meaning in the eyes of a glance at me, turned to leave. Lee King viciously glared at me, face expression twisted horror, where there is half a 3 years ago pure and lovely look. See me straight shake my head. Lu Jinan, this dog is estimated to have an ex-girlfriend plot, who becomes an ex-girlfriend love. After they left, Zhang Qi tightly pulled my hand towards the underground garage. Once on the car, he put on a face of hatred. She's going to hit you, you won't hide. Still standing there stupidly, he said as he reached out and pinched my face, a look of heartache spreading thinly under his eyes. I didn't react, but I'm lucky to have you. I opened my eyes and gently looked at him. This tactic worked for him 100 times. Zhang Qi really instantly broke, a hand to put me into his arms, heartbreakingly rubbed the top of my head. Just then, the cell phone rang, and a friend's anxious voice came from the other end of the line. Zhu, you've been accused of plagiarism, and now it's on the headlines. I opened my cell phone to check the microblogging, and my eyes were filled with words of abuse. Various tags came one after another. Famous painter behind the scenes is actually a mistress. S University outstanding graduates Zhu listened to collapsed room. Lu Jinan x Zhu listened to double. A lot of unidentified netizens, unpleasant private messages, crazy influx of my microblogging page, my private messages directly full. The first hot search is the first point of entry is a fellow senior brother tearfully complained that I plagiarized the video. He sat next to the shape of a crazy Lee King. She was cloaked in hair to the camera with a snot and a tear to tell the camera when I do body double intervene in the feelings of her and Lu Jinan. The tearful look wrestled a lot of netizens' sympathy. Lee King stared at the camera's eyes as if quenched with poison in general grim. At the end of the video said, "Don't think you can cover up your bad behavior by hugging Jiang's thighs. The netizens' eyes are all sharp." Before I could react, the phone was taken away. Zhang Qi's slightly warmed face once again collapsed and said in an icy tone, "It seems that the knocks given to them over the past few years weren't enough. They really won't stop until they reach the Yellow River." I pressed down his hand that wanted to call and order his men to suppress the hot search, smiled at him. I want to let them off and fall from the heights to the bottom of the taste. Things continue to ferment. Li Qingqing sighed, seeing no reaction, began to buy Water Army in the Zhang Group's official blog below the message to persuade Zhang Qi and I this habitual third hand. Li Qingqing even slander me in order to new love to buy the shares to Zhang. This series of operation down to make Lu Jinin's company all the way up the wind. He began to microblogging to help me to speak, gradually also no sound. Zhang Qi and I are not slow to collect evidence on the one hand, and on the other hand, we are guiding public opinion to make everyone think that I am being hammered to death and do not dare to come out to issue affirmations. No way, I saw her before and thought she was pretending, wearing a Cheongsam Maverick every day. I didn't expect quite pretty. I didn't realize that she likes to steal other people's boyfriends so much. It's disgusting. I heard that the young master of the Zhang family is deeply in love with her. Tsk, what a pair of dogs. Zhu Hearing is a plagiarizing dog. Get out of S City. Even my mentor called over to ask if I needed help, and told me that he had already expelled my senior brother from the division, and that he believed that my ability would never do anything like plagiarizing. I replied one by one to thank you, coldly looking at Li Qingqing open live broadcast to sell misery, like a clown jumping up and down. Jump up and down, let you be happy for a few more days. I turned off the live broadcast, turned into the kitchen and wrapped my arms around Zhang Qi's waist, buried his face in his back. Zhang Qi has a lily tattoo, is the first year abroad for me tattooed. Smooth muscle texture on the white tattoo contrast always lure me unconsciously touched up. Zhang Qi at first will also red ears called me not to touch, and then directly evolved into the first eat me, and then eat. Half a month later, Zhang suddenly had to open a conference, and the journalists who came to hear the news almost filled the entire venue, and countless flashbulbs lit up when we both entered hand in hand. Zhang Qi calmly announced to them that we were getting engaged, causing an uproar. At the same time, the microblogging site was also updated with the news that my senior brother had slandered me and sent me to jail, as well as Li Qingqing's debauchery abroad, and in an instant, the netizens' comments were reversed, and they all began to congratulate the two of us for tying the knot. As for Lu Jinin's originally shaky small company, under the full force of Jiang's suppression also went bankrupt and closed down overnight. In the evening of the conference, once again become a debtor Lu Jinin, this time without the help of the wrongdoer me, a leap from the company's top floor jumped down, died on the spot. With all the dust settled, I held Zhang Qi's hand and set out on the road back to the town once again. "You're finally taking me to meet my parents, sis." Zhang Qi's nearly 1.9 meters nestled in my arms and pampered himself, his soft hair rubbing against my face, putting me in a good mood and rubbing his head in passing. Although he had met my parents in the town before, I had never told them about Zhang Qi and I dating, and meeting his sorrowful eyes, I said with a smile, "Have you thought of what to say when you meet my parents later?" Zhang Qi then sat up straight and confidently told me, "Just don't worry, I'll make sure my parents-in-law approve of me." From the rearview mirror to look back at the trunk almost cannot be stuffed with a whole car of cigarettes and alcohol and large and small gift boxes, I backhanded pinched Zhang Qi's nervous and slightly sweaty hand, with a happy smile and said, "Well, I believe you, baby." Still called baby? I blushed and opened my mouth to shout, "Hubby." Good boy.